We're gathered here in Abuja for the second time this year, having convened in July for an extraordinary council meeting. Let me use this opportunity once again thanks members for responding enthusiastically to the invitation for the extraordinary council meeting 5 months ago. That meeting focused on our tasks as public information managers in responding to the country's security challenges, as well as keeping track of our collective march towards the digital switchover, which is due for June next year, in a way and manner that changes broadcasting as we know it today. I would also like to place on record my deep appreciation of the positive response of council members as public information managers on the heels of the outbreak of the highly contagious Ebola virus disease. As you're all aware, Ebola was imported into Nigeria by the late Liberian American Patrick Sawyer just about 2 weeks after the extraordinary council meeting to which I earlier referred. It is most gratifying that governments at all levels mobilize ordinary Nigerians to our individual and collective responsibilities as a result of the public health emergency and posed by the presence of Ebola in the country. The result was that Ebola was defeated, and in the process provided useful lessons to the rest of the world. That mobilization effort is a testament to how truly effective we can be as public information managers. Today's meeting has come at the opportune moment in our country's history, having been convened approximately 2 months to the 2015 general elections, as well as coming almost on the eve of global transition from analog to digital broadcasting. The theme for the 45th meeting is Strategic Information Management for Credible and Peaceful Elections. It has been chosen to enable council members get to grips with our obligations as public information managers in the seasonal political context as the 2015 general elections approach. Having been witnesses to local elections conducted by the various state independent electoral commissions, as well as some recent governorship elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, we are no doubt familiar with the overwhelming expectation of all stakeholders for a free, fair, and credible election. The electorate desire that their votes count and are counted, all in an atmosphere devoid of intimidation, violence, and other acts that seek to compromise the free will of voters to make their choices. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan had made this commitment, had delivered in 2011, and will deliver again. As public information managers, we must strive to build understanding while dispelling misperceptions, suspicion, and fear. The 2015 general elections are not about war, and Nigeria is not about to break up. We are one country and will remain so after the 2015 general elections. Yet, we cannot take things for granted. We must therefore design and emphasize key messages that will promote peaceful and credible elections. In particular, our messages must target vulnerable groups that are easily recruited to foment trouble during and after elections. Such vulnerable groups need urgent reminders that persons who lost their lives in the first general elections are not around now to participate in the forthcoming polls. Besides, it is worth reiterating the spirit of sportsmanship in electoral contests. The fortunes of a loser in one election will turn around dramatically in the next election. We must harp on the message that elections are not a do or die affair, because as the saying goes, a person who chooses to break a coconut with his head might not live to eat its fruits. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the task we're setting for ourselves as public information managers recognizes that the electoral umpire cannot cover the entire sequence of preparing for and supervising elections and also undertaking full-blown public enlightenment on a scale that is as intense and widespread as we are capable of achieving as managers of information in the public space. The electoral umpire simply does not have the resources for such a venture. In the circumstance, public information managers should bear part of the responsibility for voter education that is vital to the overall success of the elections. For instance, as recently as last week, more than 30% of the permanent voters' cards which are ready for collection had not been picked up by their owners. As the elections draw nearer, there will be issues of where and how to vote, as well as how to reduce the barest minimum the incidence of void ballots. I am aware that in recent times, INEC has held stakeholders meetings with various bodies, including religious leaders, to sensitize them on these and other issues pertaining to next year's elections. I would like to urge the electoral body to also engage with public information managers, especially at the state levels, in order to gain more mileage on public enlightenment. Invariably, in an election season, the people look up to public information managers for help. While there are plural partisan platforms and peculiar interests, we must strive for the national interests which can be fully met by free, fair, and credible elections. As public information managers, we also superintend the media where political discourse and sundry partisan messages are trafficked. As for those in charge of the electronic media, the broadcast court is available as a guide more than ever before. We must strive to eliminate political hate speech, violent language, or incitement to violence, either through plain news report or chat shows and other phone-in programs that can be easily abused by troublemakers. I'm not oblivious of the maxim that he who pays the piper dictates the tune. This comes into bold relief on occasion when some public information managers black out stories about opponents of the government in power in the environment. Sometimes state-run media decline to accept adverts from the opposition, even when such promotional materials are fully paid for. At other times, state-run media are used to launch violent attacks on the opposition, who regrettably are denied a right of reply. Accordingly, the broadcast industry regulator, the National Broadcasting Commission, must exercise its authority to sanction erring stations. Public information managers must also remain vigilant about attempts by some politicians to manipulate them. Elections are not just about politicians. Elections also involve crucial questions about our collective future and in whose hands the electorate would like to commit. It is important, therefore, that as we nurture our democracy through periodic elections, we should attempt to steer political discourse to issues that are potentially meaningful impact for electorate. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I've been informed that at the 44th meeting at Oshobo last year, Council adopted the draft National Policy on Information. At the meeting, all states were requested for their inputs to the Federal Ministry of Information in order to facilitate its conclusion and presentation to the Federal Executive Council for ratification. It is important to stress that a national policy on information for the country is long overdue. In fact, such a policy is a pivot on which any strategic information plan should rest. Making the necessary inputs to the draft policy is our responsibility as information managers. I urge you to do so soonest, to facilitate the process, serve as a beacon to facilitate the process that can culminate in its final adoption and ratification by the Federal Executive Council. This will ultimately serve as a beacon in the implementation of public information management in Nigeria. Let me conclude by urging you to see our gathering here today as a call to service and to discuss and adopt strategies that will facilitate, that will effectively mobilize the citizenry for credible, peaceful, and free and fair elections in 2015. I wish participants fruitful deliberations and accept also my best wishes to you all for Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I thank you for the attention.